I said, hola, ¿cómo está? She said, konnichiwa. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Butterfly Effect podcast. I'm your host, Steph.
And I'm Liz.
And we are so excited to be here with you guys today. I'm just really grateful for everyone and just the support that we've gotten so far for our podcast. I know we kind of say it every single podcast, but I think I'm kind of shocked with the amount of support that we've gotten. Just so much positive feedback. So thank you guys so much for listening and sharing and sharing your heart also. It's so inspiring to hear your stories and how our stories help you guys with where you're at currently or how you guys can relate to us, because there are people that have been like commenting and I didn't even know that they went through the stuff that they've gone through. And it brings us, I guess, to like a different level in like all our relationships with people. And it really humanizes us and everyone else. So I really appreciate the people that listen and give us feedback. And even the people that don't give us feedback, thank you for listening. We really appreciate you and your support and stuff like that. So before we jump into our topic for today, I just wanted to ask, like, real quick, like, how's your 2020 going?
So far, so good.
I know we just started, so I know, like, that's just such a... Like, we literally are just, like, maybe a few weeks in. So
2 weeks.
2 weeks in. So, but so far... how is it starting off for you, and how do you see kind of from how it's starting off, just the direction that you think 2020 is going in?
It's pretty good, honestly. I'm kind of sticking to everything that I wanted to stick to in the beginning. So, I mean, we're only 2 weeks in, but yeah,
that's cool.
Gym's been good. My mental health has been good. How about you?
Good. I think I've been given a lot of, opportunities. The year just started.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's just a lot of doors opening for me in different areas: ministry, work, friendships, just a bunch of different stuff happening that I never thought I'd see myself doing. But I'm doing.
Super exciting.
Yeah, so it's like really exciting to see God just opening a bunch of doors for me, so that I can have just different experiences and just different things. Just recently I preached at a women's conference and that was really fun. Just seeing women older than me and being able to share, with women who are older than me, and just hearing their feedback and just seeing how God moved in the room and how he restored and healed, and the connections that I made through that is just really cool to see. I never thought that I would have so much favor with people, but there's a scripture that I've kind of been praying over my life. And it's when they said that Jesus had favor with men and the Father. And that's what I've been praying for, that I would have favor with men and the Father. And I just find myself in positions where I am having favor with people. I also find myself in a position where I'm fighting a lot of, not physically fighting, but dealing with a lot of people who have jealousy problems. And I also see how much I've grown from where I was at when I first started ministry and where I am now. There's a lot of people who have been offering me just different positions or just different opportunities. And there's been these checks in my spirit where I'm like, that's a cool opportunity, but I don't think that's where the Father's leading me. So just seeing that maturity in me, whereas before I would be like, yeah, sure. Because I didn't know where life would lead me. But now I'm just like, okay, Lord, where would you have me? Where can I be fruitful? What's going to feed my life? What's going to draw me closer to you? And what's going to actually hurt me? The opportunity seems really cool, but I just want to know, what is it that's going to make me more fruitful in my walk with you and make me grow and mature as a believer, and help other people around me? And is that a position that you have for me, or is it a position you have for someone else? Because I never want to take someone else's position. If that's what the Lord's called them to, how would they fulfill that position if I'm standing in their way? If I'm really holding that position. So I'm learning to say no, which is hard for me because I love saying yes to people and I love just new experiences and things like that. So I'm seeing how much I've matured. It's only been 2 weeks in, but I'm seeing a lot, and it feels like we've been in 2020 for a few months already.
Yeah, it does.
So yeah, that's how my 2020 is going. A lot of new opportunities, just checking my growth track, seeing how far I've come and just honoring myself and celebrating myself, which is something that I've had a hard time doing in 2019. Yeah. But in 2020, I'm really learning to be like, Steph, I'm proud of you. That sounds weird, but I think learning to celebrate and honor yourself is so huge. And giving yourself just that like pat on the back, like I'm proud of you, like way to go. Is what I'm learning to do. And that's what I've kind of been doing in 2020.
Yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah. I'm really proud of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming. I've just been dragging you around with me.
No, I love going to all those
Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Reminds me of the old times.
Yeah, I appreciate the support. It's really great.
So today you are going to be sharing your story of Belgium.
I am. I'm going to share a little bit. I'll probably share the whole story.
Sure.
Of like my journey with Belgium. It was one of the most impactful trips that I've had.
So what drew you to Belgium specifically?
Well, I was going to Valley Forge at the time.
Okay.
And my junior year came up, and I knew that in my junior year I had to do an internship somewhere. And
that's scary.
Yeah. Okay. So every person's junior year, you have to do an internship, but depending on what your track is what you do with it, right? So if you're in youth ministry, if that's your track, then you have to do something in the youth field.
Yeah, that's cool. I guess.
So you have to intern in a church as a youth minister.
Somebody who's studying to be a missionary, that's kind of scary.
Right, very much so. So they said to me, well, you need to go to a different country for a few months and you need to live there, get adapted to the culture and do ministry there. And the missionaries, they're going to pretty much be over you and they're going to grade you. They're going to write a review on you and you need to write a paper on your experience and what you've learned. And there were just some courses that I took while I was over there and tests that I had to take and what I've learned and things like that. Because your whole junior year is training you for your internship.
Wow.
So I spent most of my junior year kind of gearing up for this internship and I've tried different countries. What I originally wanted to do was go to a Spanish speaking country because it's what I'm comfortable with, right? I speak Spanish. I've done it before. I've ministered to, I've been in a Spanish church, I'm used to it. So
it's a culture that you're very used to.
Yeah, I'm accustomed to it. I didn't really feel like it would be uncomfortable for me. That's where I wanted to go because I knew this was going to be a big change for me. And I wanted to make sure that I was somewhere where I can at least understand the language. Right. And so Costa Rica was my first choice.
Okay. I didn't know this.
Yeah, Costa Rica. And I remember I was sitting with one of the ladies from the church. She was a good friend of mine. And we got to talking about just my semester and what my plans were. And I told her, well, I have to do an internship. And at that time, she was going to school also. She was going to Oxford, I believe.
Okay.
And I believe, I'm not sure. I know she was going to school again. Maybe it was Princeton. Maybe it was seminary. That makes sense. Yeah, she was going to seminary, but she was going to go to Oxford on her internship as one of her internships. And she said to me, well, we should do our internships together because I have to do my internship also.
Oh, cool.
So I was like, okay, yeah. So she was going to work on doing research for Oxford. And then that was only maybe a few weeks. And then she needed to go somewhere else for the rest of the remaining time. And so she was like, where should we go? And I was like, well, we were looking into Costa Rica together. So I had someone that I was going to go with. We were going to get there at different times, but we were going to be there ultimately together. So I'm like, this is looking like it looks a little better because I'm with someone I know and I'm going to a country where I can speak the language.
Right.
And so we got to talk to the missionary and it just wasn't a good fit. He was really honest with me and he's like, we don't really do just what you're looking for and there's not really much experience that I can give you. And so the field that I wanted to go into at the time was working with sex trafficked women, abused women. And the reasoning for that is because I felt part of my ministry was to minister to pimps because I believed, well, it was prophesied over me that I would help aid in ending sex trafficking. And so which is a different story.
Wow, yeah.
Why I am in my heart, I said, well, who's ministering to the pimps? right? And that sounds a little harsh. Like, what do you mean the pimps? Like, they're trafficking this woman. But the way that I looked at it was the abused need Jesus, right? The victims need Jesus. There's already a ministry that's ministering to these women. Amazing. I love it, right? We have Christine Kane. We have Breaking Chains Network, which is the ministry I've worked with. We have a bunch of ministries that are like, I am aiding in ministering to these women. And my heart was, okay, well, who's ministering to the men? I haven't really seen it.
Right.
And I'm always the type of person that likes to do things that's never been done before.
Of course.
I don't know why I'm like that.
Yeah.
I don't know if somebody could comment if you know why I'm like that. But that's just how I am, where I'm like, okay, that's being done. I'm not going to start another one of those. What I want to start is something that ministers directly to pimps, right?
Right.
So I had that in the back of my mind, and I was like, okay, I knew that in my internship, I wanted to work kind of in that area.
Right.
I didn't really know what that meant, but just in that realm, you know? And so I've tried a bunch of other different countries. I tried Cambodia, that door closed. I tried India, that door closed.
Oh, wow.
I tried China, that door closed. And China was because it's just an incredibly communist country. And just the pastor that I was under didn't feel comfortable sending us
dangerous
out there. Yeah, at that point in time, he just didn't feel like, okay, Steph, like you're going to be fruitful there. Eventually, I felt called to China. I said, eventually in my life, I would like to minister in China, right? But just that moment, it just didn't seem like that was the right moment to send me out, which I respect. And so then the people that I was living with, he had connections in Belgium. He worked with missionaries in Belgium, and he said, well, let me get you connected through there. The door closed. The guy ended up getting sick.
Wow.
And I was like, man, like, I don't know what I'm going to do for my internship. Like, I don't have an idea. And then all of a sudden he gets a phone call, Breaking Chains Network, and he connects us together, and he says, Steph, like, fill out the application. We got you connected with missionaries in Belgium to work with sex traffic victims. So I started the application. I sent them my testimony. We had an interview on Skype. And I remembered I was sitting in my dorm room, and we had an interview there. It was maybe 6 o'clock in the morning here. There are 6 hour difference there. So it was definitely,
12.
It's their afternoon. So we sat down. I remember meeting with Sean and April, amazing missionaries. Love them so much. They really changed my life. And we just talked about my heart, and we talked about what I've been through and just what I feel in my heart, you know, what God is calling me to. And yeah, I packed my bags and I got ready and I flew to Belgium.
Wow.
So yeah, that's
so
why.
What was that like? That the flight must have been super long. Like what did that
so
entail?
I flew into Ireland, which was an 8 hour flight into Ireland. And it was the worst flight of my life. I mean, like, I never felt like I wanted to get off of a plane so bad in my entire life.
How
come? Well, I didn't know that up until that point, but I hate flying.
Right.
So I didn't know it up until that trip, but I ended up getting really sick. I think I ate something that made me just super sick. So the entire 8 hour flight, I'm not even kidding you, the entire flight I'm throwing up. Like, I have this migraine, I have a fever, I'm throwing up, I just can't keep anything down. I'm dehydrated, but I can't drink anything because anytime I put something in my system, it'll come back up. It was just horrible. I couldn't sleep. It was just a mess.
That's a long time.
Oh, 8 hours. Literally, I remember from the second I got on the plane, from when we took off, I was like, I ended up throwing up in those little bags because I couldn't get out of my seat because the seatbelt sign was on. So I was like, I'm going to throw up either on myself or this poor Irish boy is sitting next to me and I'm just vomiting. And he's just looking at
violent vomiter.
I'm violent. I'm in the plane. I'm just throwing up. And this guy's rubbing my back. I don't know his name, but shout out to that kid. He was awesome.
A kid?
So he was like, he had to be like 17, 18 years old. He's like rubbing my back. I'm throwing up violently. And
like,
then
maybe if I do this, she'll shut up.
we end up switching seats because I kept having to get up. And he was just like, just sit in the aisle seat and I'll sit in the window seat. And the whole time I'm just getting up, and then I would try to fall asleep, and then I would wake up and throw up, and then I would go to sleep. It was just a mess. So I smell like I just a wreck, I'm sweating. I'm just a mess.
And that's the first flight. I'm like, oh my gosh. So we get into Ireland, and I can't read the freaking signs. Wait, I was just going to say, side note, were you like incredibly lonely at this point? Because I feel like traveling alone is so lonely.
No, because I didn't think about it.
Okay.
Until
you were just focused on your destination.
Yeah, because I knew from Ireland I had a connecting flight.
Okay.
And I had maybe 25 minutes to get to my connecting flight. So...
Oh, God. So you were like...
Yeah, and I'm like, focus. Ireland is such a big airport in Dublin that I didn't know where my gate was. I didn't know anything.
Oh,
and then this is the first time that I had a flight overseas.
Right.
And I'm like, do I have to go pick up my bags? And then,
I would be panic. When we went to California and like we had a connecting flight and it was a 4-hour wait, I was even panicking then. Like, we need to find our gate right away.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine like
25 minutes.
And then being by yourself. No.
Right.
Nope.
And so I get off the plane, and then also I don't have the international chip on my phone. So the only way that I can talk to anyone is through Wi-Fi. If there was no Wi-Fi and through WhatsApp, I can't talk to you. So I'm like, and I don't know, I'm trying to pull up my ticket. It's just a mess. So I'm going through through Dublin Airport, and there's this checkpoint. And the checkpoint like pretty much stamps your passport.
Yeah.
And you get checked as if you're going through security again. You have to stand in front of this computer thing. It takes your picture. You type in where you're going, the purpose you're going there for, how long you're going to be there. And it's just like this whole thing. They print out your ticket for your next flight. That's how you get your next flight, right? Because, normally you print out the both tickets. No, not this time. So... whatever, I print out my ticket. I'm still like super dizzy, and it's at this point it's like 5:00 in the morning in Ireland.
Oh God.
I try to connect to the Wi-Fi. I can't, and I'm panicking because I can't find my gate, and I can't read the signs. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, so I just started crying, and I was like, I want to go home. Like, this was a mistake. I don't want to do this. This is not the life for me. I want to go home.
Oh my God, just chaotic. Airports are terrifying.
I hated it. And so I was by myself, and that's when I felt like this whole thing of like this like panic. And I remember the last time I felt that was like when I was a kid and my mom would drop me off for school the first day of school. Bendito. And it's this like newness, and you're like, oh my gosh.
Like, where's my class? I remember like even in high school, because the high school I went to a few high school. Anyway, one of the last high school I went to, junior year, it was so big that I would like get to school even earlier. I would have my parents drop me off super early so I could figure out where my class was.
Right.
Because panic.
Right, yeah. And I knew that the Dublin airport was so big, so that's what I tried to do.
Oh my God. I would be like looking up on Google Maps, like the inside of the airport or something. I don't know.
But I couldn't find anything. So I'm like, all right, let me figure this out, So I'm looking, and I figure out that I'm on the complete opposite side of the airport, and I have to book it to my next flight. So I'm booking it through this airport. I finally get there, and I'm like, I have to throw up. So I look at everyone's already boarded. I look at the flight attendant lady, and I'm like, I need to throw up. And she was like, oh, in her accent, oh, okay. And I'm like, please hold the flight. I'm going to vomit. I leave my bags with her. I run to the bathroom, and I just throw up again violently. Oh
my God.
I end up making my flight, but like by like a few seconds, if that. By
the grace of God.
Yeah, by the literal grace of God. I sit down, and I'm exhausted. Like, I'm exhausted. Yeah. So the flight from Ireland into Belgium is a 2.5-hour flight.
Okay, that's not too bad.
It's not too bad. So the catch is that the weather in Belgium and Ireland is not the best. So it's raining, and there's gloomy. Turbulence, and there's just a bunch of fun stuff. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just regretting life. I'm exhausted. It's literally, the time zones are different. I'm just tired, and I'm just like, I regret everything. I'm like, I don't know why I did this. Like, this why didn't anybody talk me out of this? I'm not made for this life. And so I sleep and like I wake up because of the turbulence. I maybe slept like a few minutes, and I look over to my left across the aisle and I see this man. And he's sitting there. He has his headphones in, and it looks like he's speaking in tongues.
Oh.
And I'm like, like, is he speaking in tongues? Because the turbulence was really bad. So I'm like, is he praying? And so
he's like not. He's just speaking a different language.
I didn't know what to do. I didn't know
because he's crazy.
I don't know what got into me, but we stand up when the flight lands, and I go to him. I don't know what I was thinking, but I look at him and I say, he's grabbing his bag, and I go, "Are you a Christian?" And he looks at me and he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, his name is Eric Holland. And I said to him, so shout out Eric Holland. He's not listening to this, but shout out Eric Holland. Yeah. So he looks at me, he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, me too. And he's like, "Oh, okay." And he's like, "Why are you here?" And so in missionary training, what they train you is not to tell why you're there. Right. So you say something like, "Well, I'm visiting family."
Yeah.
Because if you say, "Well, I'm here on a missions trip," they're gonna be like, "What's your mission?" Yeah. So you start getting segregated. So you kind of have to be like, "Well, I'm here to visit friends," or "I'm here to visit family," stuff like that. I even have to know the address. I have to tell the people at border control the address I'm gonna be at, how long I'm going to be there, and my purpose for visiting the country, right? Yeah. So I look at him and I say, I'm like, me too. And he was like, "Okay, awesome." And he's like, "Why are you in Belgium?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm visiting some friends." And he's like, "Okay, I'm here on a business trip." And I was like, "Okay." And he looks at me again. He goes, "Actually, I'm a pastor in Ireland." He's like, "I'm an assembly." He's like, "A pastor." Oh, wow. And he said, "I moved to Ireland, kind of like 10 years ago or something like that." He's been living in Ireland. And I was like, "Well, I'm actually here on a missions trip."
Oh, you like spilled the beans.
And he was like, "Awesome." So I told him the missionaries and who I'm working with and stuff like that. And he was like, "Okay." So we kind of go our separate ways. He goes through border control. I do. Yeah. And then I don't know where I'm at. So to give kind of some timeline, I flew into Belgium literally a week after the Belgium attacks happened. So there was a bombing in the Belgium airport, and I flew into Belgium right after that. So there's security everywhere. There is people with guns, and it's just a scared dog. They're patrolled, like locked down. Yeah. And then everything's in French because that's what they speak in Belgium. And I'm like, crap, I don't know where I'm going.
I would be panicking.
I'm just circling. Circling. Then I can't connect to the Wi-Fi, and I can't tell the missionaries that I've landed. Yeah. So I'm just circling. It'd be over for me. And all of a sudden, the pastor comes up to me. I see him from the corner of my eye. He walks up to me. He goes, "You need to be careful." He said, "You are in one of the highest sex trafficking areas. And so I'm going to walk you to your missionaries." He's like, "I have daughters, and whenever I see young women traveling, it makes me nervous." So he said, "I'm actually going to walk you to your missionaries." And he goes, "And actually take down my number. I'm only about 2 hours from Ireland. If you feel unsafe in any way, let me know, and I will fly you to my house, and we'll get you on a plane back to America."
A literal
amazing
angel.
man. Amazing man. Yeah. So we get connected. I end up flying. I end up meeting with my missionaries. Mind you, I've only met them through Facebook, through that interview. So it's like, this is our first time.
It's not like you know them.
No, this is our first time meeting face to face. So we meet, and we're good. I get connected with my missionaries, with April, Sean, and her name was Stephanie, the missionary associate. And they were like, "How were you? Like, how was your flight?" I'm like, "Actually horrible." And they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." They give me Belgium chocolate because that's like, that's the thing in Belgium is chocolate. And so we go to the house. It's like the safe house. So where I work, what they would do is that they had an Oasis Center in Antwerp, Belgium. The Oasis Center was a center right off the red light district, literally right off of it. Okay. And women would work the red light district, and Sean and the other missionaries, sometimes we would go into the red light district and invite the women back for dinner. And that's where they would kind of minister to the women, share the gospel, eat with them, stuff like that. But then there was a safe house that was about maybe 45 minutes away from the red light district in Waterloo, Belgium. They're no longer there, so that's why I'm saying these things. I can say these things before I wouldn't be able to. Right. But I believe they sold the safe house and they have just something else going on. So they were in Waterloo, Belgium, which is about 45 minutes from Antwerp.
Okay.
Without traffic. Of course, with traffic, it's longer. Yeah. So we stayed in the safe house. Their offices was about 10 minutes from the safe house. So there's 3 different locations that we were mainly in, you know? And out of all the interns, I was the first one there.
Oh, God.
So
I would have hated. Oh, God.
So I'm the first one there. I get to the safe house and it's just everything hits me. I'm sitting in my room and it just all hits me all at once. Yeah. Like I'm in a different country. I'm with people I don't know. I am so alone. Yep. And I am panicking. Like, what am I, like, have I lost my mind? Yeah. Like, what, it like all hit me and I start to like legit panic. So the way the houses work in Belgium is like literally shut down. So like nighttime comes and these crates come and they literally, like think zombie apocalypse, like the windows, the curtains, they're like, it's like a chain fence, like ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Like that, like literally on all the windows, on all the doors, it's like literally locked. Like the house looks like a box, locked down. And so she tells me this, like you have to literally like chain the windows down and lock it in because this is what we have to do here. And I'm like, solid, okay. So we go there and it's just hard for me to sleep because of the time differences.
And also I just feel like anxiety wise.
Yeah, the anxiety was at, my anxiety was at a all-time high. I'm paranoid beyond anything because of a lot of the stuff that I've been through. So I'm like, I'm going to get sex trafficked. Like this is it. Like I'm going to get kidnapped. Like this is it. Everybody's tried to kidnap me my entire life. This is it. Yeah, yes. I'm like, this is it for me. Like this is it for me. And so I can't sleep. I try praying, I try all these different things and I just can't. And then knowing like, okay, women have stayed here. So I'm like, God knows what the heck they left behind. You know what I'm saying? As far as like, you know, just spiritually and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, dealing with a lot. This is too much. Like I'm panicking. And then the next day I have to get up early because lo and behold, I go during a women's conference and I have to be at the women's conference.
And you still really aren't able to contact anybody,
No, I can't contact anyone. The Wi-Fi was really spotty. So, I mean, like I was able to like text the family that I was staying with to be like, I landed. Yeah, yeah. But that was pretty much the extent of our conversation. Like, oh my God. Yeah, like there wasn't really a lot of Wi-Fi. So there wasn't much that I can do. So I go through the next 2 weeks alone. And just like, I end up cleaning house, you know, just praying over every room. I end up literally cleaning the house because that's what I do when I'm in just in a really weird place. Like if I have so much anxiety, I just clean the crap out of everything. So I cleaned the house. Me and the missionary associate kind of talk here and there. She was very like to herself introverted, which I was fine with because like at that time, like I needed to transition and like figure out where I'm at and get my surroundings and stuff like that. I go to the supermarket with her. We buy my food. And this is the first time I tried the best thing in the entire world, speculoos. And it was the best thing I've ever. So for the first 2 weeks, all I ate was speculoos and Domino's. Speculoos? It's like peanut butter, but it's like Belgium peanut butter. It is so good. So in Belgium, they have something called speculoos, and it's speculoos everything. It's like chocolate everything and speculoos everything. Speculoos ice cream, speculoos spread. It's just amazing. I love it. I literally would eat just spoons of it.
Love that for you.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. So I get there, I meet with the missionaries again. We kind of go through church. They walk me through the entire building on like the offices, and it's just really cool setup. There's different people that use that office, and they have a church that ministers to the missionaries, and there's different missionaries there. And it's just a really cool setup. And we just start kind of talking about what's expected of me during this internship. And so they were in the process, like I said, of moving out. So we were in charge of pretty much cleaning the house out, boxing, putting it in boxes, things like that, throwing things that needed to be thrown away, stuff like that, painting the house because they did a huge mural on the wall for the women, so we had to paint the house. Just that was the gist of our thing. And then at the same time, cleaning out their storage in the basement. So A lot of the stuff that we did like was there, you know, like our first few weeks in getting kind of accustomed to the time zone. That's what we did.
Gotcha.
And then a few weeks later, another intern comes, and her name was PJ. And PJ was just a blast. She's just the type of girl that was just so funny and relaxed, and she just made you feel comfortable all the time. And I just loved PJ. She was just different. You know, she didn't take life too seriously, and she made sure you knew that, you know. So we go to Belgium. I mean, she comes to Belgium. Sorry. She comes, and me and her we're just moving things together. Just me and PJ. And if you've seen PJ, she's so tiny, like just skinny, just tiny. And so like me and PJ moving refrigerators is just a scene, you know? So we're moving literally moving refrigerators, couches. And it was just like a scene, you know? We're climbing stuff, and there's dust everywhere and bugs, and we're just joking and laughing. It was just a blast, you know? So it got easier as the other interns came, but in the beginning it was just hard. Culture shock is a real life thing, and I found myself like really battling, like I'm in a completely different culture. Like they drive on the opposite side of the road, like
my brain like just wouldn't be able to. I am such a orderly, like stick to my schedule, everything in place, everything in line person. I think I genuinely would have a heart attack. So I think I don't know. Normally it's hard. Change is hard for me. But I think because I was with people who were doing it with me, I wasn't alone in it. Yeah, it helps because you're all learning together and you're not alone. So we would have staff meeting, and they would just kind of say, okay, today this is your agenda. So all the interns end up coming, and they kind of break us off into teams. So it's me and the girl that I go to church with, and then PJ and another girl named Stephanie. So there was three of us, three Stephanies in this house. So my nickname in Belgium was Jersey, because I was from Jersey. So that's what they knew me as Jersey. And then Stephanie, the other Stephanie, was from California, so they called her Callie. So my name was Jersey, her name was Callie, and then the missionary associate was Stephanie, because she's superior, you know. She's been there for... She keeps her name.
Her name.
She's owned her...
So I would go by Jersey in Belgium. Everyone, the missionaries called me Jersey. The people that I worked with called me Jersey. That was just my name, Jersey. Gotcha. And then the other stuff was Callie. And then we have PJ, and then the other intern. And so we did our thing. The other intern did not want to move anything because she's allergic to dust. So that's another conversation. She just did research. And then what we did was we did a lot of moving. We moved refrigerators and beds and just a bunch of stuff.
What was it like to be on the red light district, from hearing about it to actually being there? What was that like, and what was that like?
My first time going to the Oasis Center, which is right off the red light district, pretty much what we would do is that we would cook for the women. So Sean and
that was your first little taste of the red light district, was the women, yeah.
Okay. So they kind of eased us into it. It wasn't like they threw us on there and they were like, go.
That's traumatizing.
No. So they kind of eased us into it, and what we would do is we would pick our meals, or the meals that we wanted to cook, and Sean would go and buy all the ingredients, and we would cook it. And then Sean and her dog would go onto the red light district and just kind of invite the women out. She would go to the different brothels, and she would just say, hey, we're having dinner, and if you can make it, come and make it. She'll go to each window and just inviting women. And so then that would took Sean like maybe 2 hours. And we would cook, and we would make coffee and tea and just a whole spread for these women and just really bless them. And then they would come up. Just little by little, they would just start trickling in, and they were just awesome people. And so remember how I said to you, like, I wanted to be somewhere where I can speak Spanish because that was my language, right? All of the women that came were Spanish speaking. That was their first language. And so it was really cool to see God be like, I got you. You know what I'm saying? Because what I expected was almost like I'm going to be uncomfortable. Like,
and they're speaking French because you're in Belgium.
I don't know any. But a lot of the times these women, Some of them were promised jobs, like hearing their stories. Some of them were promised jobs, and they end up getting put on the red light district by a boyfriend, or some of them are promised a different education. Some of them, their families put them on the red light district because they need to make money. So they're on the red light district because their families, and then they send the money back to where their families live.
I think that there's such a warped perception of the red light district. It's also something that's not very talked about. I was watching a YouTuber that I watch, and she is my age, and she went to the red light district and was just like, la la la. And I was watching the video. I was like, if she understood, like, the women in the window are not there because they want to be there.
Right.
Like, this isn't something that is just glorifying, like, having a good time and just having sex with people. It's like, I understand people with the thing about sex workers and stuff. A lot of them are actually forced to do what they're doing. It's not by choice.
Yes.
So I think that's something, if you are listening, to understand that the red light district is not, a lot of it is the women and children. It's not their choice.
It's not their choice, yeah. And so what I ended up doing was I worked in the Oasis Center for a little while until I kind of got used to the women and the women got used to me.
Yeah.
And we clicked, like, right off the back. They became almost like moms to me, which sounds weird, right?
Yeah.
Because these are women that work in this kind of environment, but they love so deep and they care so much.
It's crazy.
You would not expect it, right? You would kind of expect the
cold,
opposite.
They're like bitter.
No, not at all. That, if anything, they're very caring and they're very loving and they're very kind.
Wow.
And so we just hung out with them and we just talked about life and we talked about their day. A lot of them, they just get beat up. Like, a lot of them get raped. A lot of them have hard days where these men, like, sleep with them and don't pay them, and then they have to pay their pimp, or it's just a really tough environment. So to give them a space where they can just breathe and be safe. You know what I'm saying? And then at the same time, the missionaries are working to get them out of that district and kind of talking to them about Jesus and their worth and reminding them that they're worth so much. And it was just cool to see the missionaries just working with the women despite the language barrier, because these women spoke Spanish. And so English was like a second language. So it was hard to communicate. So seeing the language barrier and still seeing Jesus move despite the language barrier was so different for me, you know? And so I remember Sean saying, okay, we have to leave. It's getting dark out. We need to leave. And I remember being like, well, why? And she was just like, well, when the sun goes down, it gets crazy. And so we leave, and I remember driving and seeing the red light district for the first time.
Is it red?
It is red. Yeah, and I'll explain why they call it the red light district in a second. It's actually wild why they call it the red light district.
Yeah, it must be red.
No, it's red. It's literally a red district.
Just like LED lights?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I remember seeing it for the first time and seeing the women in the windows while we were just driving past it.
Yeah, so you weren't actually walking.
I wasn't
the
walking.
Street. You were driving this time. Well, the first time you saw
around,
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I remember seeing the women and how much it affected me. I remember I couldn't get the picture out of my mind. Like, I couldn't get the picture of seeing, it was maybe 3 windows that I've seen. There's over 500 windows in Antwerp. There's 2 red light districts in Belgium. Over 500 windows in Antwerp alone, and then another 500 in the other red light district, which is another 2 hours away in Belgium. Like, that's crazy.
That's
so over
insane.
1,000 windows in Belgium. Could you imagine?
Well, and that's what you see.
That's what we see.
There's probably stuff underground that's nasty.
Oh yeah, the way that the red light district works is that it's a strip. Think of like a strip mall.
Yeah.
And then there's alleyways.
Okay.
And the deeper you go in, the more windows there are. They're literally stacked on top of each other. Like, think of an apartment building with long windows and women standing on different floors. Then you go inside the window, and then there's more windows inside, and it's brothels and beds, and so there's all these different windows and people, and the deeper you go, the darker it is, meaning the nastier it is, and the more you're going to see things you cannot unsee, right? The younger it gets, let's put it like that. Yeah, so it's dark.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to say, like, it's not what people paint it to be. Like,
no,
this
it's
place
dark.
where you can just go and, like, pay for sex.
No,
it's like disgusting.
No, it's legal actually
I
in
know.
Europe. And so what's twisted about this whole thing is that the government is actually involved in trafficking these women in,
disgusting.
because there's revenue that comes out of the red light district that funds certain things in Belgium. And so there are certain companies that are funded by the red light district, and cops, police officers help traffic the women into the red light district. And so the way that it works is that prostitution on the streets is illegal, but prostitution's inside the window is legal. So on the streets illegal, off the streets in the windows legal. So
wow, that's insane.
Yeah, so fast forward a few weeks, and we're doing what we're doing. We're doing the moving out. We're not at the Oasis Center every single day. We're at it once a week. So on Thursday nights was my week, and I would go. And so I would see the women once a week, and we would kind of get accustomed to them and stuff like that. And then I really connected with them, and we just formed a really deep relationship. Yeah. And then we did an outreach. And this is before I went to Macedonia and Germany and all those places. So we would go to, in the middle of our week, we would travel to different parts in Europe and either do ministry there or just go and see. So we went to the Netherlands, we went to Germany, we went to places like that. And we were going to go to Macedonia. And in Macedonia, we were going to do another outreach ministry to kind of bring awareness to the red light districts, and also do ministry in the red light district in Macedonia, and just minister to the Macedonian people. So before we left, we had our outreach in Belgium. And so what we did was we put together these teacups and cupcakes, and me and Sean, the missionary, this is my first time on the red light district, during the day.
Sean's a woman.
Yeah. We went out into the red light district. And we handed out cupcakes, and we went into the brothels, and into the windows.
Was this your first time on the red light?
My very first time, yeah.
Wow.
And so the way that it is this: it's like I said, a strip. Women are in the windows, and there's only men walking around. Wow. Rarely do you see women on the streets unless they're walking to their windows to work.
Feminism is shook.
And so it's hard to take it all in.
I wouldn't be able to process.
There's so much going on that it's hard to just
sensory overload.
Like there's so much. You have to be careful because you could get snatched up because there's pimps walking around. You have to be careful because there's Johns, they're not pimps. They're just men that have sex with the women. Yeah. They're called Johns.
They're like the money.
Yeah. So you have them walking around, and then you have the section,
client.
So you have the section where some of them know you're missionaries and they don't like you,
right?
Some of the women, and so they're flashing you. So you're seeing peepees.
It's not funny
because there's trannies there. So you're seeing peepees, and you're seeing boobies and vaginas everywhere. So sorry if you're a child listening to this. I hope you are not listening to this.
This is not child content.
Yes. So you're seeing all of that all over the place. Some of them will literally bend over and show you their butt. Like it's just, and they think it's funny. And
it's vulgar.
Yeah, very vulgar, very literally perversion at its finest. Like dark perversion, lust everywhere. So it's as dark as it can get. And so what is
your obviously you can't have a reaction, but like what are you thinking in your head? Like just keep walking straight,
I think straight. Because the missionaries brief you before you go on, and she's like, you're gonna see some things and you have to have zero response,
right? Because obviously the more response, the more they feel right. So she says what they gotta do.
So she would say to me specifically, like, you're gonna see some things, Steph, and you have to be like as if it doesn't faze you.
Yeah,
like it can't faze you. You can't let it show. You have to be able to conduct yourself in such a way where it's like normal. So we're walking through and we're just ministering to a few of the women. We're giving them cupcakes. We're inviting them back to the Oasis Center. So we do that, and I've had a few encounters with some of the men on the actual street of the red light district. The Johns, yeah, and they would say things like, "Why are you walking around?" I share this at the women's conference that I preached at. Like, why are you walking around? Like, who are you? And me and Sean were standing there, and we were like, well, I said to him, I'm from America. And I came all this way to tell you that Jesus loves you. I don't know why I came on this mission trip. And to be honest with you, I regret half of it because the trip was horrible. On my way here was horrible. And I regretted it. But I think the reason why God told me to come and I felt it like is because I was gonna meet with you today. And the Lord began to move on his life. And so we had really great, it wasn't just like this fear and all this stuff. Like I wasn't afraid. I was like, this isn't normal. And I was uncomfortable. Was still
present somehow.
So present. And that's what I say all the time is that I've seen dark things and I've seen the presence of God just invade darkness on that trip that it changed my perspective on how the Father pursues. You know, I've seen God pursue even the darkest of darks. Like look at what my trip was. It was me sitting with women who do the unthinkable, but yet God still calls them daughter.
Yeah, it's like you see something and it doesn't matter what you see, it matters the perspective that you see it in.
Right. And people say things like this, and this was one of the conversations I had with the women, and she said to me, well, I'm so dirty. And my conversation with her was, God, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because Christianity is not get yourself clean and then come to Jesus. Christianity is come to Jesus. It doesn't matter if you're dirty, if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're widowed, if you're married. It doesn't matter. And this is the conversation I had even today with pastors here in America. What they have twisted is that you need to be put together. And that's what he said to me. You need to be blameless in appearance. And I said, where in the Bible does anybody that God chose was blameless in appearance? Show me.
The only one was Jesus.
Oh, the only one was Jesus. Peter was cutting a guy's ear off. Like, look at the people that Jesus chose. There were thugs, there were zealots, there were prostitutes that followed him, tax collectors. Like, show me the most blameless one. Show me them. Paul the apostle says, I am the chief of sinners right before he's martyred. So let's talk about it.
The chief of sinners.
So I think that's what I'm saying. So let's talk about Christianity for a second, because we have it really twisted. Here in America, we believe that Christianity is an American dream, that Christianity is put together cookie cuttered families that have it all together, when in reality, Christianity and the reason why Jesus died is for the broken ones, is for the dark places, is for the ones that don't have it all together, aren't for the ones that have their appearance all put together. Shoot, I would get my nose pierced 10 times and pastor a church before a pastor tells me that I need to be blameless in my appearance. Are you kidding? Are you joking? That is something different. I don't care. I don't care how much you've studied the Bible. You've missed it if you think that God doesn't pursue the dark things. He doesn't pursue a person that's living in a dark place. Jesus will pursue you regardless of what you're doing. He loves you and he calls you, and that's what changes you. You don't change yourself, but the blood of Jesus is what changes you. And that's what I learned in my trip in Belgium, was that Jesus is present in the darkest of places, and darkness cannot stand against his presence. It has to bow. And that's what I learned. And so I saw Jesus change the lives of women. Like, I saw him do it. I saw them become open to the gospel, open to missionaries. Do you know what that is? For women who are so hurt and abused to be open, right?
Yeah, that's insane. That's a miracle.
It's a miracle. And so to be able to minister and just be there, right? Because I wasn't necessarily preaching the gospel. I was just serving them. Right. And I think that's what we have to.
I think that's the essence of the gospel.
That is.
Like, that's the essence of being a Christian. It's
absolutely.
Just serving and loving.
Serving and loving. And I learned that in that trip. And then, and what I learned on the trip, which I found so much healing. I found so much healing in the women that were saying, well, I forgive the person that did this to me. What?
Girl? Like, no.
Are you joking?
Serious?
Yeah. Like, to literally say to me, Steph, I forgive those men. Wow. I forgive the ones that raped me. I was raped today and I forgive him. Are you kidding?
Oh my God.
And in me, I'm still holding grudges from 1993.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck? You know what I'm saying? Like I'm sitting here like, these women can forgive, and I can't even forgive the person that gave me a bad attitude. I need to check my heart.
Yeah.
And it was such a humbling experience.
Sure.
And I remember every single time I would come home from the Oasis Center, I would just sit in my room and just cry to Jesus.
I know, like, wow.
And I would just be like, God, like, you're using these women to heal my heart. Could you imagine that? Like, you're using the low of the lows to heal me. Like, you're moving through them. Every encounter I had with one of these women, it was such a refreshing moment, right? It was so beautiful. It was so refreshing.
Yeah.
And so I had just many encounters in Belgium. So, like, we don't have enough time for me to go over every single one.
Maybe we could do little snippets here and there throughout the years of this podcast.
Yeah, but like, it was such a trip that changed my life. And I know a lot of people say that, like, I went on this mission trip and it changed my life. Like, it shaped me. It shaped how I loved people. It shaped all these, just like my direction into ministry. It shaped like my growth and my belief in God. It was the thing that was the opening of
the
me.
Pivotal moment.
The pivotal moment. It marked me.
Yeah.
And I will always go back into that moment as it marked me. And we didn't even touch on Macedonia, because Macedonia wrecked my life even more, which we could talk about in another podcast. But that entire trip, my entire time there, it was spent me learning so much about who I am and where God needs me to be and who God is as a father who loves and pursues. And I remember my very last time with the women there. This is we're closing up. We're gonna go into Macedonia, because when I got back from Macedonia, I had to fly back home.
Okay.
And I remember we're doing a sermon on teacups and how fragile they are, but how Jesus, how he's in the fragile things, and how he puts together the fragile things, and how he holds us because we're so fragile. And I remember this was my first time translating a sermon into Spanish, because the women were primarily Spanish speaking. Right. If anything, all of them were Spanish speaking. And so Stephanie preached, Callie preached in English, and I translated her thing in Spanish. And I remember after that, the women, her name was Samantha. I would never forget her. She sat me down and she says, "You need to come back to Belgium." And I was like, okay.
She was on the red light district.
She was on the red light district, yeah. And she said to me, "Stephanie, why don't you just go to school here? Why don't you just transfer? And do you have to leave?" And she looked at Sean and she says, "Does Stephanie have to leave? Like, why can't she just stay?" And Sean was like, "She has to go." And I remember when I got back home, I wrote Samantha and I sent it over to her. I wrote her a letter. I haven't heard from her since, but it was such a beautiful moment, because the women were like, they were literally taking their shirts off of their back and giving it to me, like taking their clothes off of their back.
That's a dirty shirt.
And saying to me, yeah, I mean, it was nice. And they were saying to me, "Steph, like, I don't want you to forget about me." I still have it till this day.
The white shirt.
The white shirt. Yeah. "I don't want you to forget about me." One of the women, she had in a kind of like a little apartment next to the red light district. And she said, we walked to her apartment, me and her. And she just filled a bag with shoes and clothes and little trinkets. And she was just like, "Just don't forget about me." And I remember saying to her, like, "How could I forget about you?" And she said, like, "You have to come back and you have to come see." And I haven't been back since, and I have to make a trip out there. But I remember, in that moment, one day, I remember in that moment thinking, like, this is the gospel. This is Jesus, that women who don't have anything are giving me the very thing off of their back.
It's like the oil.
Yeah, like
the washing.
Yeah,
she
like,
was a prostitute.
She was, yeah, like the breaking of the alabaster box. And like, that was literally what they were doing. And it was a sense of honoring. Yeah. And like, because I remember feeling bad, and I remember Sean saying, "No, they're honoring you." And I looked at it like this: our perception on people that work in the red light district, or who are strippers, let's say, or do things like that, like, our perception is ill, right? When these very people, when they encounter Jesus, give you the very shirt off of their back. Like, this is the type of people that they are. And I'm not saying all of them are like that, because like I said, we encountered some that were flashing us their stuff.
Tough.
And they were tough, and they were like not having it, and that's okay. That happens. And I'm not saying
that's just ministry.
That's just ministry. Yeah, you're going to have all of it. But like, the ones that I did encounter and the ones that were open and their hearts were still soft towards the Lord. And again, that's Sean and April and the people that are praying for this ministry. So I encourage you, pray for Breaking Chains, pray for Sean, pray for April, pray for the people that are on the front lines, because I'm telling you right now, that job is hard.
Oh God,
because
I couldn't even imagine.
It's hard because guess what? They take women and they give them a job and they get them off the red light district. And do you know that a good majority of them go back? You know how hard it is for you to minister to these people and then they go right back to it. Hard. It's hard. Yeah. And so pray for strength for these women, because I know it's tiring and I know it's hard, and I have so much respect for them. And they're just amazing people. And so yeah, I come back to America and my life was changed. I didn't know how to function here. I didn't know how to do ministry in America again when I saw what I saw. And so my heart, again, like
you were gone for a while.
Yeah. And so my heart, one, transitioning back here with the time zone and culture and all that stuff is wildly different. And then the other thing was I loved the interns that I was interning with. Like, we became family. So it was like I left my family, you know, like the missionaries, and it just felt like I left a part of my heart in Belgium, and it just was hard for me to kind of just come back over here and just be like, okay, like done, check it off my list, because I love so deep and I love so hard. So it was like they became a part of me and I became a part of them. Fanny, my girl Fanny, love her so much. She was a missionary in Belgium that I met that was my age, and they were like my people, you know, like we all had the same heart, the same mind. And it wasn't just all ministry. We had fun. We visited a bunch of places. We visited Corrie Ten Boom's house. If you don't know Corrie Ten Boom, look her up. Amazing person. She loved the Lord, was actually sold into the Holocaust. She was taken captive into the Holocaust. Her dad owned a watch shop, and you could actually go to Corrie Ten Boom's house in the Netherlands and walk through it and see what she went through when she was hiding Jewish people from the Germans. And so you get to kind of walk through the history of Europe, and it's just exciting. We went to a concentration camp there and we walked through there and we saw a lot of things. And again, even in the concentration camp, people were worshiping Jesus. It's like you're seeing Jesus in these dark places, right? Like you're learning about the God in the darkness. And it was just so different to see, because you don't see that here in America, because everyone doesn't know how to be vulnerable. But I'm telling you right now, as shocking as it is, in Europe, people are vulnerable. Right? At least the ones that I've encountered, and seeing just the history of what they've been through and how they still worship the Father. Some of us, we have a hangnail and we curse God. You know what I'm saying? Some of us, one thing goes wrong outside of plans and we can't worship Jesus. Right? And so, but seeing people who are tired, ministers who are tired and still giving glory to God, right? And leaning on each other and being vulnerable and honest. And then seeing people who don't know Jesus know that there is a Jesus and be so open to him, or be the more Jesus than a Christian's Jesus. You know what I'm saying? So it was just a really crazy experience that when I came back, I knew I wanted to make a difference. Again, that's who I am, right? I want to go and I want to make a difference. And so my life took a different route, and because of the trip, I wanted to work with the younger generation, because of the things that I've seen and the young people that I saw in the red light district. And I wanted to so bad work with teenagers, because if only they understood their identity, right? Like if they understood who they were in Jesus and what they can do if they allow Jesus into their life, their worth, right? If only they can see that. And so it was my mission to show teenagers that through them, that they can do impossible things because they believe in Jesus. And so I started working with teenagers. I became a youth pastor after that. And so I never thought in my entire life that was something that I would do. If anything, I thought I was going to do the opposite, and I was getting ready to go on another missions trip. Like I was done just sitting around. I wanted to keep going on trips. As much as I hated the travel, that experience was so positive that I was like, and it impacted me so much that I'm like, okay, what's the next thing, Lord? Like, I want to go back to Belgium, you know? I'm like planning all these things, and God's like, no, we're going to minister to teenagers. So I did that. I ministered to teenagers for a little while, and it was an adventure.
Yeah.
It wasn't all bad, and it wasn't all good. It was ministry, and it was good ministry, and I love them to death. Until this day, I love them.
Yeah.
And I pray for them more than they know.
They're not so much teenagers
They're
anymore.
not so much teenagers anymore, and I don't talk to them, but I love them so much.
Yeah.
And I will always love them. They'll always be my babies. I've had them since they were young. Like your brother was my teenager. I had him at 14 years old. He's now 20. That's crazy, you know? Like I watched Josh grow up. You were actually one of my teenagers, 15 years old. And so then you became one of my co-leaders.
Yeah.
But my point is this, is that trip shaped me and it changed my life. It marked me, and it was an amazing trip. And like my point in sharing this story, and like, it's not just to share my experience with Belgium, but it's just to share that Jesus is in a dark place. Jesus can be in dark places. His light shines in the darkest of places. The Bible says that darkness is as light to him. So like, it's this thing that what is darkness compared to the light of God? It's nothing. It can't stand.
It's not even a thing.
No, and I've seen Jesus move. So it's like what it says in Psalm 139, like I make my bed in Sheol and you are there. Right? Sheol is translated to hell, right? Or Psalm 23, where he says, I walk through the valley of the shadow of death and you are with me. Your goodness and your mercy pursue me. And it's this beautiful picture of I can be in the darkest of place and his goodness and mercy pursue me, right? And that's my point in sharing this, is Christianity is not this put yourself together, make everything perfect. That's not Christianity. That's the opposite of what Jesus came for. I love it. Ravi Zacharias says like this: he didn't come to make bad people good. He came to make dead people live.
That's beautiful.
Come on. And like, it's this beautiful reality that Jesus didn't come to give you some behavior modifications. No. He came so that you may have life and life abundantly. Yeah. And that's why I'm sharing this story.
Wow. It impacts me every single time that you share it. I'm like, I don't know. It just takes me, I don't know. There's something about that story that every time you share it, it gives me like faith. And I know this sounds cliche, but it makes me think like what I go through is genuinely nothing compared to what they're facing, like the darkness that they face. Like I'm so blessed to be at the place that I'm at. It gives me good perspective, I guess I could say, on my own life.
It does, yeah.
And not to say that when it gets dark for me, it's dark for me, because it's my life. Sure. You know? But it really shows a lot of perspective of like what people, like what the world actually goes through. Yeah. Like outside of your own little bubble, outside of America in general. Like it's dark and it's scary. Like older people are affected, little kids are affected by this. It's just like really sad. Sure, yeah. And I just want to encourage everyone, just like if you're praying, just take the time out to pray for missionaries around the world, because it's hard work. Yeah. They're on the front lines every single day, just literally giving their lives for people. Missionaries are amazing people, and I think that they're not honored enough. Yeah. We rarely talk about missionaries unless you're a missions-based church, but even then, like, it's just like, let's go and support them. But I'm saying, like, really in your time, like, just pray for missionaries. There are also places that need missionaries. So pray for the Lord to send it. The Bible says this, that pray for the Lord of the harvest to send workers, send messengers, and because the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few, right? And what he's saying is that there's a lot of souls out there that need to hear Jesus, but there's not enough people talking about the gospel. There's not a lot of people going. And so he says, pray that the Lord of the harvest would send workers. Pray for him to send people, because we need them. Not everyone is designed for it, but the ones that are designed for it, take courage, take bravery, stand up and answer the call, because we need you and we support you and we pray for you. If you're a missionary, we love you, we support you, we pray for you, and we stand with you in Jesus' name. Yeah. Amen. So, just kidding. Amen. Yeah, amen. Thank you guys so much for listening to my story. That's my story. You barely even like scratched the surface. There's still, you know, and it's probably probably a lot of darker things that you saw that aren't really appropriate to share, that are meant to just stay with you. So
yeah, if you want to hear more, come get coffee with me.
That'd be fun. But yeah, thank you for sharing this story. Yeah, it's very vulnerable.
It's an honor.
Yeah, thank you for sharing their stories too.
Yeah, I love them. praying for them.
Yeah.
We love them so much. Thank you guys so much for listening. If you want to know more about my story, hit me up. Let's go grab some coffee.
Yeah, follow her on Instagram.
Follow me on Instagram. Let's talk. I would love to share more about my experience there and kind of talk to you guys a little bit more. Maybe you're a missionary and you want to share your experience.
Yeah.
Or you've been on mission trips and you want to share like what your encounter was out there, because I think it's healthy for people to know that there's a world outside of
I know.
this.
I think that's what I am such a person that I get so lost in my own little world and my bubble that like I forget that there's literally a country other than America, which sounds awful to say, but it's so true. Like I get so wrapped up in my own world. So thank you for taking me out of my world and opening my eyes.
I love you guys. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment, share this video. We want people to hear about what God is doing around the world. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for your support. I can't thank you enough. We're going to be talking about just, I guess, over the next few weeks, just the direction of the podcast. We definitely want to get more guests on here. We want to touch on mental health and the church. I think that's going to be in the next few episodes. Definitely. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned because that's coming up down the pike. We love you guys. I am a teacher, and yes, I did say down the pike. So
like, what the heck?
Stop looking at me like that. I love you guys. We'll talk to you next week.
Yes, bye-bye.